My wife announced our divorce to 18 million people before she told me. I was standing 30 feet away. That was the part people always left out later. They remembered the live stream. The flashbulbs. The clip of Celeste Arden looking directly into the camera outside the Dolby Theatre and saying, "Evan and I have been separated for some time. We love and respect each other, but our marriage is ending." Calm. Elegant. Perfectly rehearsed. The problem was that less than 3 hours earlier, she had kissed me in our kitchen and asked whether I wanted Thai food after the premiere. We were not separated. We had not discussed divorce. And I had absolutely no idea my marriage was ending until my actress wife announced it during the biggest publicity event of her career. Evan. My attorney, Melissa Grant, touched my arm. I did not look at her. On the monitor beside the press line, Celeste was still speaking. Silver gown. Diamond earrings. Hair swept over one shoulder. The same woman whose dress I had zipped 20 minutes before we left the hotel. Beside her stood Julian Cross. Her co-star. Hollywood's current favorite disaster. 34. Handsome enough to make magazine editors forgive almost anything. And 48 hours into a scandal that threatened to destroy a $210 million franchise before opening weekend. The film was called Ashes of Eden. Celeste played the lead. Julian played opposite her. My company owned the underlying rights. That detail would become important. But not yet. A reporter shouted. "Celeste, are you confirming the reports that you and Julian became involved during production?" She smiled. Not warmly. Professionally. "I'm confirming that my marriage has been privately changing for a long time." Julian looked at the floor. I stared at him. Then at her. Melissa whispered. "Do not walk over there." "I'm not. You're thinking about it." "I'm thinking about a lot of things." "Think from here." Good advice. I stayed. Another reporter. "Were you already separated when you and Julian were photographed leaving the Bel Air house together?" Celeste did not hesitate. "Yes." My stomach went cold. There it was. The reason. Not divorce. Alibi. 2 nights earlier, paparazzi had photographed Celeste leaving a rented Bel Air property at 3:14 in the morning. Julian came out 7 minutes later. That alone would have created gossip. Then the story got worse. The house belonged to a producer named Marcus Hale. Inside had been an unofficial afterparty attended by cast members, studio executives, agents, and several people who had signed morality and sobriety provisions after Julian's previous problems. Julian had spent the last year rebuilding his career after a DUI arrest and rehab. The studio insured Ashes of Eden only after his loan-out company accepted strict conduct requirements. No intoxication during promotional obligations. No illegal substances. No conduct likely to trigger production insurance exclusions on the sequel. Then someone leaked video from inside the party. Julian drinking. Not one glass of champagne. Enough that nobody could plausibly call it ceremonial. The clip showed Celeste taking the glass from him. Then guiding him upstairs. Then both disappearing from view for almost 40 minutes. The internet decided they were having an affair. The studio had a worse concern. If Julian had relapsed during an active promotional period, the completion insurer for the sequel could demand new conditions or refuse to bond him. Without a bond, major financing would freeze. So the story needed to become something else. Not relapse. Not misconduct. Romance. Messy, clickable, ordinary romance. And the cleanest way to transform married actress disappears upstairs with troubled co-star into 2 consenting single adults under media scrutiny was apparently to make me single retroactively. Melissa looked at me. "You understand what she's doing?" "Yes." "She's creating separation before the photographs." "Yes." "Do you think it's true?" "No." "Any private separation?" "No." "Different bedrooms?" "No." "Counselors?" "No." "Divorce discussions?" "No." She nodded. "Good. Don't say any of that publicly tonight." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because if this is tied to the Julian insurance problem, there may be contract implications." There definitely were. Melissa knew because she had written half of them. 7 years earlier, before anyone outside a few independent film circles knew Celeste Arden's name, I bought the film rights to a series of novels called The Eden Cycle. At the time, they were cult books. Strong readership. No studio believed they could become a franchise. I did. My company, Northline Pictures, acquired exclusive screen adaptation rights. I mortgaged an office building to finance development. Spent 3 years packaging the first film. And cast my wife. Not because she was my wife. Because she was good. That distinction mattered to me then. Still did. Celeste had been working for 11 years. Television guest roles. Supporting parts. One cancelled streaming show. Nothing that turned her into a star. Eden did. The first movie cost $42 million. Grossed $487 worldwide. The second grossed $700 million. By the third, Celeste Arden was earning $12 million plus back-end. Northline still controlled the underlying rights. The studio distributed. Our financing partner funded a percentage. Celeste and Julian performed through separate loan-out companies. And buried inside the franchise agreement was a provision everyone had considered boring when we signed it. Lead artist continuity approval. Northline retained approval over the principal performer attached to the character of Mara Vey for each new installment. Celeste was not guaranteed the role forever. No actor was. But the studio had negotiated a 5-year exclusive attachment with her loan-out company because recasting a franchise lead after 3 successful films was commercially insane. That attachment depended on Northline continuing to approve her. And I controlled Northline. Not because I was her husband. Because I owned 68% of the company. The studio knew that. Celeste knew that. Which was why what happened next made no sense. A reporter asked. Evan North is here tonight. Did he know you were going to announce this? For the first time, Celeste hesitated. Tiny. Maybe half a second. But I knew her face better than any camera ever would. No. The crowd reacted. Even reporters understood what that meant. She recovered quickly. This is a painful private matter, and I wanted to speak for myself before speculation became cruel to people who don't deserve it. People. Plural. Julian. A reporter immediately asked. Does that include Julian? Celeste looked at him. Then back to the cameras. Julian has been a friend during an incredibly difficult period. I won't let him be blamed for the end of a marriage that had problems long before him. Julian finally spoke. I cared deeply about Celeste, but I did not break up her marriage. Technically, maybe true. He had not. She had just done it herself. Melissa exhaled beside me. That was coordinated. Yes. You sure? Julian doesn't improvise that cleanly. I had spent 18 months around him. The man once required 17 takes to deliver a 5-word press line joke. This was written. Prepared. Approved. The question was by whom? My phone buzzed. Celeste's publicist. Please don't speak to press. We need 15 minutes. I showed Melissa. She laughed. Generous. Then another message. This one from Celeste. Please trust me. I'll explain upstairs. Trust me. I looked at the woman on the screen announcing the end of our marriage. Then typed nothing. The press line continued. I walked away. Not dramatically. No confrontation. No cameras following because everyone was focused on Celeste and Julian. Melissa came with me. We went upstairs to a private hospitality suite Northline had reserved for investors and producers. My business partner, Jonah Reed, was already there. He had watched everything. He shut the door. What the hell was that? My divorce, apparently. Evan. I know. No, I mean why is she using the marriage to protect Cross? I looked at Melissa. Because of the insurance? Jonah's expression changed. You know? Guess. He poured himself water. Studio called me an hour ago. That was new. Who? Rebecca Sloan. President of production. What did she want? To know whether Northline would support a revised sequel schedule if Cross underwent immediate independent sobriety evaluation. There it was. So the relapse concern is real. They think so. Did she mention Celeste? No. Did she mention divorce? No. That mattered. If the studio had not known about Celeste's announcement, then this might not be a studio strategy. Publicist. Agent. Julian's people. Maybe Celeste herself. Jonah continued. The sequel financing closes Friday. 3 days. Completion bond? Conditional. On Julian? Yes. And Celeste? No problem before tonight. Before tonight. I looked toward the television. Celeste's face filled the screen. Entertainment Network lower third. Celeste Arden confirms divorce amid Julian Cross romance rumors. There it was. Exactly the transformation. Julian Cross's possible sobriety breach had become a celebrity divorce. The public was not asking whether he violated insurance conditions. They were asking whether my wife loved him. The studio would still ask the first question. But public pressure had changed. Maybe that was all Celeste wanted. Enough noise to buy Julian time. The door opened. Her publicist entered first. Tessa Monroe. Behind her, Celeste. No Julian. Good. Celeste looked at Jonah. Can we have the room? Jonah looked at me. I nodded. He and Tessa left. Melissa stayed. Celeste noticed. Evan. She stays. This is about our marriage. No. My voice surprised even me. This became business when you used a live franchise event to announce it. Her face tightened. I was trying to stop Julian from being destroyed over something that didn't happen. What didn't happen? The affair. Did you sleep with him? No. Immediate. I believed her. Why were you upstairs for 40 minutes? He was drunk and panicking. So you helped him? Yes. Why not say that? Because then everyone asks how drunk. There it was. And if everyone asks how drunk, the insurer asks harder. They already are. Yes. So you decided an affair rumor was safer. For the film. No. For Julian. She stared at me. Both. I laughed once. You announced a fake separation to protect his bondability. It wasn't supposed to be fake for long. That sentence changed everything. What does that mean? Celeste looked away. I felt my chest go cold. Celeste. She finally said. We haven't been good for a long time. That is not the same as being separated. No. Were you planning to leave? I've thought about it. Did you tell me? No. Did you talk to a lawyer? Silence. Of course. How long? 2 weeks. Melissa stopped taking notes. I stared at my wife. She continued quickly. Tessa said if I was already considering divorce, announcing tonight could protect Julian without creating a total lie. A total lie. I repeated it because the phrase was almost impressive. We were married this morning. Yes. You asked me to come upstairs after the premiere. Yes. You kissed me before we left. Yes. But because you privately thought about divorce, telling 18 million people we had been separated for some time was only a partial lie. She started crying. I panicked. There it was. Not strategy now. Panic. Julian could lose the sequel. Yes. So? He's finally rebuilding his life. And that required mine? That's not fair. No. I stepped closer. What wasn't fair was deciding my marriage could become his press shield because you thought you might eventually leave me anyway. She wiped her face. I was going to tell you tonight. After? Yes. That answer made something inside me settle. Not explode. Settle. Then Melissa's phone buzzed. She looked at it. Then at me. What? Northline Legal. She turned the screen. A clause reference. Section 14.3. Lead artist continuity approval. Public conduct. Material misrepresentation affecting franchise marketing. Not an automatic termination. Not a morality clause. Something narrower. The studio's franchise marketing plan required all principal cast to participate in coordinated publicity and prohibited unilateral statements that materially altered the marketing position of the film or exposed the franchise to avoidable reputational risk without prior notice, where the statement concerned a matter directly affecting campaign strategy. Celeste had just announced a divorce during an official Ashes of Eden event. Without telling Northline. Without telling the studio. And used the announcement to redirect a scandal involving her co-star. Melissa said carefully. You have the right to suspend Northline's continuity approval pending material breach review. Celeste stopped crying. What? I looked at her. She knew exactly what the words meant. Evan. I'm not doing anything tonight. Please. I said I'm not. Her face lost color anyway. Because suspension alone would force the studio to freeze her attachment to the sequel until the dispute was resolved. That could delay financing. Trigger renegotiation. Open the door to recasting. And because her separate 5-year exclusivity deal prevented her from taking another franchise lead while attached to Eden, a prolonged dispute could trap the next phase of her career inside one contract she had assumed would always protect her. I had written that contract to make sure no studio could casually replace my wife after she made the character valuable. Now, for the first time, I understood the opposite side of it. It also meant she could not casually use Northline's premiere, Northline's franchise, and my marriage to save another actor without consequences. Celeste whispered. You wouldn't remove me from Eden. I looked at the woman I had spent 7 years building films with and 16 years building a life with. No. Hope appeared. Then I finished. I wouldn't do anything tonight. Her face fell. Because tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would wake up with attorneys. Contracts. A studio demanding certainty before Friday financing. A wife who had already announced our divorce to the world. And one clause buried inside a franchise agreement that suddenly gave me the power to decide whether Celeste Arden remained the face of the only series Hollywood still considered her indispensable to. She had gone live to save Julian Cross. By morning, she would learn that the contract she had spent years treating like career insurance was about to become the first thing she could no longer control. By 8 o'clock the next morning, 3 different people were telling me not to touch Celeste's contract. The studio, her agent, and my own chief financial officer. That was how I knew everybody finally understood what the contract was worth. I had slept 2 hours. Maybe. At 5:40, I gave up pretending and drove to Northline's Century City office. Jonah Reed was already there. So was Melissa. The conference room screen showed the overnight numbers. Ashes of Eden was trending first worldwide. Not because of reviews. Not because of the premiere. Because my wife had announced our divorce while standing beside Julian Cross. Jonah pointed at the screen. Trailer views are up 28%. Of course they are. Social mentions doubled. Great. Ticket pre-sales also increased. I stared at him. Are you trying to make me feel better? No. Good. He changed the slide. Then the important numbers appeared. Studio sentiment analysis showed a massive shift in what people were talking about. Before Celeste's announcement, Julian's possible sobriety breach dominated. After, Celeste. Divorce. Affair speculation. Relationship timeline. Exactly what she wanted. The public scandal had moved. The insurance problem had not. Melissa opened a binder. Completion guarantor requested independent toxicology and treatment records for Cross. So the divorce did nothing contractually. Correct. Jonah added. It bought him public sympathy. Not bond coverage. No. I laughed without humor. So she spent our marriage on a problem it couldn't solve. Melissa looked at me. Do not frame it like that in any formal communication. Why? Because you're about to make a corporate decision involving your spouse. There it was. The same conflict she had created for herself now existed for me. Different shape. If I suspended continuity approval because I was angry as a husband, Celeste's lawyers could argue bad faith. If Northline had a legitimate business basis, we needed to document it independently of my marriage. I sat down. What would you recommend if Celeste were not my wife? Melissa did not answer immediately. Good. I'd recommend a formal material breach review. Not suspension. Possibly interim suspension. Why? She made an unapproved statement during an official franchise event. Yes. She introduced a major personal narrative directly into the campaign. Yes. She did so partly to alter media treatment of another principal performer whose conduct is under insurer review. Yes. And she did not notify Northline or distributor marketing. No. Melissa turned a page. Those are business facts. Jonah asked. What about the divorce itself? Ignore whether it's true for now. I looked at him. That hurt more than I expected. But Melissa was right. Northline had no business deciding whether my marriage was emotionally real. It could decide whether one of its lead performers materially disrupted coordinated marketing. She continued. Then there's section 14.3. The clause I had seen the night before. Lead artist continuity approval. Everyone online would later describe it as the contract that let Evan fire his wife. That was not what it did. Northline did not employ Celeste directly. Her loan-out company, Arden House Entertainment, contracted with the studio. Northline controlled approval of the performer attached to Mara Vey because Northline owned the underlying rights. The studio could not automatically lock Celeste into future installments without our approval. We could withdraw approval prospectively. For the sequel. Not retroactively. Not from the film opening Friday. Not from merchandise already contracted. Not from completed work. And not without exposing ourselves to litigation if the decision violated good faith obligations. Jonah asked. So what happens if we suspend? Melissa answered. Studio cannot close final cast continuity certification for Eden 4. Financing? Likely pauses. Cross? Separate problem. Celeste? Her next installment option remains unresolved. And exclusivity? Still active during the contractual election period unless waived. That was the dangerous part. Celeste could potentially be neither confirmed nor free. I hated that. Not because it hurt her. Because contractual leverage used carelessly could become exactly the kind of punishment people would accuse me of wanting. No indefinite limbo. Melissa looked at me. Agreed. If we suspend, set a deadline. 30 days? Too long. 14. Jonah shook his head. The studio needs financing clarity by Friday. 3 days. I looked at the screen. Then 72 hours. Melissa frowned. That's aggressive. The business deadline is aggressive. Fair. Northline would issue a temporary continuity hold pending review. Independent committee. I would not vote. That surprised both of them. Jonah asked. You're recusing? Yes. You control 68% of the company. Exactly. And if the committee decides to keep her? Then Northline keeps her. He stared at me. Even after last night? I looked directly at him. If I want to divorce my wife, I can hire a divorce lawyer. Silence. If Northline wants to remove its lead actress, it needs a business reason that survives without my anger. Melissa nodded once. Good. That was the cleanest decision I made all morning. At 9:12, the studio president called. Rebecca Sloan did not waste time. Evan, do not suspend Celeste. Good morning to you too. I'm serious. So am I. You will blow up financing. That depends on your lender. You know what I mean. What exactly are you asking? Wait until after opening weekend. There it was. Same instinct as Celeste. Buy time. Get through the vote. Get through the financing. Get through the weekend. Truth later. No. Rebecca went silent. Evan. She used an official premiere to alter the campaign without notice. Which helped the movie. That isn't the standard. It should matter. It does. I looked at the overnight pre-sale report. Helping ticket sales does not automatically make a contract breach harmless. She's the face of the franchise. Yes. You remove her, the fourth movie loses half its international pre-sale value. That's why we're reviewing instead of reacting. She sighed. Is this about your marriage? That's why I'm not voting. Silence. Then. You're recusing? Yes. Her tone changed. Less defensive. More cautious. Who decides? Northline's Independent Rights Committee. You have one? We do now. Very reassuring. I'm sure. Northline already had an investment committee for transactions involving me personally. Melissa proposed using the same 3 outside directors plus 1 entertainment attorney with no relationship to Celeste. Clean enough. Not perfect. Nothing involving a majority owner's spouse ever is. Rebecca said. Give us 72 hours. That's exactly what we're doing. Do not publicly announce a hold. I don't plan to. Good. Then she added. Cross-tested negative for illicit substances. That caught me. What about alcohol? Not part of that test. Treatment review? Pending. So his conduct issue remains. Yes. Did Celeste know the studio was already working with the insurer? A pause. We had not briefed her fully. That mattered. What did she know? That Julian's appearance at the party could complicate bonding. And? That his team needed to keep press focused away from sobriety. There. I leaned forward. Who told her that? Another pause. His agent may have. Not studio. Not official. Did your marketing team approve the divorce strategy? No. Did anyone at the studio? No. Now we had a clearer picture. Celeste had not sacrificed our marriage on behalf of the film. She had done it in coordination with people around Julian. Outside the studio's authorized response. That was worse for contract review. At 10:03, Tessa Monroe arrived with Celeste's agent, Gabriel Dane. They wanted a meeting. Celeste did not come. Probably smart. Gabriel opened with, "Everyone needs to calm down." I almost laughed. Melissa spoke first. This is a rights review. Evan owns the rights. Evan recused. That stopped him. Recused? Yes. His eyes moved to me. You're serious? Yes. Gabriel leaned back. Then I'll say this for the committee. You'll say it to the committee. I'm saying it to you now. Of course. Celeste did not violate any morality provision. Correct. Did not disparage the film. Correct. Did not miss publicity. Correct. Did not admit misconduct. Correct. And the premiere gained enormous attention. Also correct. He spread his hands. So where is material breach? Melissa answered. In unilateral use of coordinated campaign media to issue a knowingly misleading personal statement intended partly to redirect coverage from another lead performer's conduct issue. Gabriel's expression tightened. Knowingly misleading is your characterization. I finally spoke. She said we had been separated for some time. He looked at me. Were there marital problems? Not the same question. You're discussing personal facts. You raised them. He stopped. Tessa stepped in. Celeste believed divorce was imminent. That does not make retroactive separation true. Tessa exhaled. She was trying to protect opening weekend. No. I looked at her. You told her the sobriety story needed to become relationship gossip. That landed. Melissa turned toward her. Did you? Tessa froze. Too late. I had guessed. Mostly. Her face gave me the rest. Gabriel said. This is privileged strategy. Not with Northline. Tessa looked at him. Then back at Melissa. We discussed multiple narrative options. What options? No comment. Fine. We would get it through formal review if relevant. Then Gabriel made the mistake of threatening me. If Northline pulls continuity approval, Arden House will sue for tortious interference, breach of implied covenant, and retaliation. Melissa did not blink. Evan is recused. The company is his. And the contract belongs to both parties. Good luck convincing a jury this isn't a husband punishing his wife. There it was. Exactly why I had stepped out. Melissa closed her folder. Then I suggest your client preserve every communication showing who proposed the separation narrative, when, and for what business purpose. Gabriel's face changed slightly. Good. Because once documents entered the room, motives became less flexible. The meeting ended. At 11:26, Celeste called me personally. I did not answer. Then she sent. Can I come home? Home. Not the hotel. Not Northline. Our house in Brentwood. I stared at the message for almost a minute. Then replied. Yes. We need to talk as spouses. Not about the contract. Her answer. Okay. That evening, she arrived without makeup. No assistant. No publicist. No black SUV idling outside. She looked exhausted. For the first time since becoming famous, she entered our house looking like the woman I married before anybody cared what she wore. I was in the kitchen. The same kitchen where she had kissed me before announcing our divorce. She stopped 3 feet away. Are you really recused? Yes. Her face shifted. I thought you'd cancel me immediately. I'm angry, not stupid. I didn't mean. I know what you meant. She sat. Then. Gabriel says the committee could remove me. Yes. Will they? I don't know. That frightened her more than if I had threatened to do it myself. Uncertainty. No husband to persuade. No personal apology that could become a business concession. Can you influence them? Of course. Her eyes lifted. Will you? No. That hurt her. Evan. No. You know what this franchise means to me. Yes. You gave me the role. No. That stopped her. I cast you. Yes. You kept it because you were good. Her eyes filled. Don't turn your own career into a marriage gift now. She started crying. I'm scared. I know. What if they recast me? Then they recast you. She stared. You can say that? As the husband? I shook my head. I hate it. As Northline's owner? I'm not deciding. She wiped her face. Then. I didn't sleep with Julian. I believe you. I don't love him. I believe that too. Then why are you looking at me like I cheated? I thought about it. Because you used our marriage as evidence for something. She went quiet. You turned our private life into a fact pattern that protected another man's career. That is not an affair. No. It's something else. Her eyes dropped. Then she whispered. I thought you could survive it. That sentence changed the room. Not because I had heard it before. Because there it was. The true calculation. Julian's career looked fragile. My marriage looked strong. So she spent the stronger thing. You thought I could survive being publicly divorced without warning. I thought we could explain later. She flinched. You mean I could absorb it later? Yes. At least she admitted it. I sat across from her. Why Julian? She looked confused. I told you. No. Why was saving his career worth this? Her first answer was predictable. He's my co-star. Not enough. The sequel depends on him. Maybe. He's sober and trying. Apparently not completely sober. You know what I mean. I do. Then. Try again. Celeste looked at the table. Because I was there when he almost died. That was new. Excuse me? During the second movie. I stared. She had never told me. Julian had overdosed? No. Not drugs. After a brutal shoot and public breakup, he had locked himself in a hotel bathroom and told Celeste he did not want to keep living. She found him. Called his brother. Stayed until help arrived. Not public. Not reported. He later went to rehab after the DUI, but apparently that was not the first crisis. Celeste had carried that memory for 2 years. So when you saw him drunk at Bel Air, I thought he was falling apart again. That explains helping him upstairs. Yes. Not announcing our divorce. No. She started crying harder. I thought if the tabloids turned him into a relapsed addict and the insurer dropped him, he'd spiral. There it was. Not romance. Rescue. Celeste had decided Julian was the fragile person in the room. I was the stable one. Same logic. Different industry. So you protected him from consequences. I protected him from a story. A true story? She stopped. He was drinking. Yes. Was he violating his agreement? I don't know. Neither did you. No. But you decided the public should believe a different story first. Yes. I leaned back. That was the problem. Not adultery. Not even divorce. Celeste had become so accustomed to press narratives being adjustable that she stopped respecting the difference between managing perception and manufacturing personal history. Why didn't you call me? She answered immediately. Because you would have said no. There it was. Again. If you asked me to announce a fake separation to protect Julian? Yes. I would have said no. I know. So you removed my vote. Yes. That was the marriage issue in one sentence. The contract issue was separate. And tomorrow, the committee would begin reviewing that without me. At 8:30 the next morning, Northline's Rights Committee requested documents from Arden House. Publicist communications. Agent communications. Premiere approval notes. Studio correspondence. Any written strategy concerning Celeste's divorce announcement and Julian Cross. By noon, they found the first message. Tessa to Gabriel, 6 hours before the premiere. If Celeste confirms marital separation predating Bel Air, press cycle moves from Julian relapse to Celeste affair/divorce. Ugly, but ordinary. Ordinary is survivable. Gabriel replied. She'll never get Evan to agree before tonight. Tessa. Then don't make agreement a prerequisite. If she plans to leave anyway, she can clean up the domestic side afterward. I read it only because Melissa sent me the conflict summary, not the full committee deliberations. My hands went cold. Not because Tessa was evil. Because she had said exactly what the strategy was. Move scandal. Use marriage. Clean up afterward. Then came Celeste's reply. One sentence. Do it. No coercion. No confusion. No studio pressure. Her decision. At 4:10, the committee issued an interim finding. Material breach review sustained. Northline continuity approval for Celeste Arden in Eden 4 remains suspended pending cure discussion with the studio and Arden House. Not termination. Yet. But Friday financing could no longer certify returning lead cast. The lender delayed closing. The studio froze pre-production spending. Entertainment press found out within an hour. Headline. Eden 4 halted as Celeste Arden contract dispute erupts after divorce announcement. And just like that, the story shifted again. Celeste had announced divorce to save Julian's career. 48 hours later, Julian was still in insurer review. And her own sequel had stopped moving. Not because I ended it. Because one contract finally forced Hollywood to ask the question her publicist had hoped nobody would ask until later. Was Celeste Arden still entitled to be the face of a franchise after using that franchise's biggest stage to manufacture a story even her own team admitted they knew her husband would never approve? The committee had 72 hours to decide whether the breach could be cured. And for the first time since she became a star, my wife could not solve a career crisis by changing the story before anyone finished reading the contract. Northline's committee did not fire Celeste. It gave her a choice. That was worse. At 8 o'clock Friday morning, 72 hours after she announced our divorce, 4 people sat in Northline's conference room without me. 3 outside directors. 1 independent entertainment attorney. Melissa attended as company counsel but did not vote. Jonah presented production impact. The studio participated for 40 minutes by video. Arden House had its lawyers. Celeste had Gabriel Dane. Tessa Monroe was there too. I stayed in my office on another floor. Recusal sounds clean until the decision involves your wife. Then it mostly means waiting while strangers discuss the value of the person sleeping in your guest room. Celeste had not slept in our bedroom since premiere night. Not because I ordered her out. She chose the guest room. We had barely spoken. The divorce she announced publicly had created a private separation after the fact. Hollywood logic becoming reality. At 10:23, Melissa came upstairs. They reached a preliminary decision. I stood. Remove her? No. My shoulders loosened before I could stop them. Melissa noticed. Of course. They found a material breach. Unanimous? Yes. What cure? She handed me 6 pages. The committee concluded Celeste's unilateral divorce statement had materially interfered with coordinated franchise publicity. Not because actresses required permission to discuss their marriages. The finding went out of its way to say that. Celeste remained free to divorce me. Free to announce it. Free to criticize me. Free to live with Julian if she wanted. Northline did not own her private life. The breach was narrower. She used an official franchise event and coordinated press access to deliver a knowingly inaccurate statement for the admitted purpose of redirecting media attention from another lead performer's conduct problem. That linked the lie directly to the campaign. Then came the cure. Arden House had 48 hours to accept 4 conditions. First, Celeste had to issue a factual correction. Not apologize to me. Not retract the divorce. Simply correct the false timeline. She would have to state that we had not been separated, for some time, before the Bel Air photographs and that her premiere statement had inaccurately described our marital status. Second, Arden House had to reimburse documented incremental franchise marketing costs caused by the unapproved narrative. Not ticket losses. There were none yet. Emergency PR. Revised advertising. Legal review. International partner communications. Third, Celeste had to accept a publicity control rider for the remainder of Ashes of Eden promotion and Eden 4 pre-production. Any statement using official franchise press access to address another cast member's legal, medical, sobriety, or conduct issue required prior coordination. Fourth, Northline and the studio would retain the right to reconsider continuity approval if further documents showed Celeste knowingly participated in concealing information material to insurer or financing decisions. That last condition was aimed at Julian. I read the document twice. This is reasonable. Melissa nodded. Mostly. Mostly? Her lawyers hate the correction. Of course. Gabriel says it is effectively a forced confession that she lied. She did. Melissa gave me a look. As husband, yes. As lawyer? As lawyer, she made a materially inaccurate public statement. Better? Much. I kept reading. If she signs? Continuity approval reinstates. Immediately? Upon issuance of the correction. Financing? Can close after the studio resolves cross. So she keeps the role. Yes. That should have been good news. Instead Melissa said. There's a problem. Of course. What? Celeste hasn't agreed. I stared at her. What is she thinking? Ask her. I'm recused. From the committee. She folded her arms. You remain married. Debatable. Celeste came upstairs 15 minutes later. Gabriel followed. I pointed at him. No. He stopped. Evan. This conversation is about my marriage. Celeste looked at Gabriel. Give us 10 minutes. He hated it. Left anyway. She stood by the window. You read The Cure? Yes. I can't sign it. I honestly thought I had misheard. Why? Because the correction destroys me. You keep the franchise. Maybe. The committee says you do. And what happens when I publicly admit that I fabricated a separation? You correct it. That is admitting I lied. Yes. Her eyes flashed. You say that like it's nothing. No. I stood. I say it like it already happened. She turned away. You don't understand what Tessa is telling me. Tessa helped create the problem. She also understands my public image. There it was. Celeste Arden had built a career on something rare in Hollywood. People liked her. Not just admired. Liked. She was known as controlled. Private. Low drama. Married to the same man before fame and after. No public feuds. No substance scandals. No leaked tantrums. Brands paid her millions because she looked safer than most actresses at her level. Correcting the separation statement would not merely reopen gossip. It would establish that she had deliberately lied live. Gabriel says every endorsement deal will review. Probably. The cosmetics campaign has a reputational representation. I know. The luxury contract too. I know. My international advertisers. I know. She turned. Then why are you acting like this is an easy choice? I'm not. What would you do? Not relevant. It is to me. I shook my head. No. You already made your choice without asking me. Her face collapsed. I know. So I am not going to make this one for you and let you blame me afterward. I wouldn't. You don't know that. Silence. Then. If I refuse? You lose Northline continuity approval. Probably. And Eden 4. Yes. She whispered. My biggest role. Yes. Possibly my career. That sounded dramatic. At the time. I did not know how close to true it would become. But if I correct, she said, I become the actress who invented a divorce to cover for Julian. You were. Her eyes filled. You really hate me. No. That was what made the entire thing harder. I love you. She started crying. I just don't love the version of events you need. That silenced her. My phone buzzed. Jonah. I ignored it. Then again. Urgent. I checked. Studio insurer decision on Cross. Call me. I called from the room. Jonah answered immediately. Cross is out. Celeste froze. What? I put him on speaker. Jonah continued. The completion guarantor will not bond him for Eden 4 under current conditions. Celeste walked toward the phone. Why? Documented alcohol use during restricted promotional period, incomplete compliance with treatment monitoring, and risk assessment. But he tested negative for drugs. Not enough. Can he appeal? His team can present additional evidence. Will the studio wait? No. She went pale. Jonah continued. Rebecca Sloan says they're exercising the recast provision. My wife lowered herself into a chair. No. Julian was gone from the sequel. Not fired from Hollywood. Not banned. Not cancelled. The studio simply would not risk a $200 million production on a lead performer its completion guarantor would not bond. He could work elsewhere. Smaller production. Different insurance. Different conditions. But Eden was over for him. And suddenly every premise behind Celeste's lie became useless. You announced our divorce to save a man the contract removed anyway, I said. She covered her face. I regretted the sentence immediately. Not because it was false. Because it was cruel when she was already understanding it. Jonah asked. Evan? Call you back. I hung up. Celeste whispered. I destroyed our marriage for nothing. No. She looked up. Don't say that. You didn't do it for nothing. You did it because you were afraid Julian would collapse. Because you wanted to protect opening weekend. Because part of you was already thinking about leaving me. All of that was real. I sat across from her. The fact it didn't work doesn't change why you did it. She cried harder. That was probably the first moment she understood there would be no easy villain to blame. Not Julian. Not Tessa. Not the insurer. She had decided. Then her phone rang. Julian. She stared at the name. Did not answer. He called again. Still no. Then a message appeared. I could see only the first line. They dropped me. I'm sorry. Celeste closed the phone. Go call him. She looked at me like I had slapped her. What? He's your friend. Evan. He's probably terrified. You don't want me talking to him. I don't want you lying about me for him. Different thing. You can care about Julian. Her face twisted. That isn't the problem. That seemed harder for her to understand than anger would have been. We had spent years treating jealousy as the obvious danger. But boundaries do not require hatred of everybody outside the marriage. They require not spending your spouse to save them. Celeste finally called Julian from the backyard. I stayed inside. 10 minutes. 20. 31. When she returned, her face was wrecked. He's checking himself back into treatment. Good. He says I shouldn't have done the divorce announcement. Also good. He says Tessa told his agent about the idea before she told him. That mattered. Did he approve it? Not before I went live. Interesting. So Julian had not even asked for the thing Celeste sacrificed. Again. People around a vulnerable person deciding what they needed without letting them choose. She sat. He said he would have rather lost the movie. I said nothing. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Her eyes closed. No. That sentence was becoming the center of everything. She did not ask Julian whether he wanted saving that way. Did not ask me whether I would participate. Did not ask Northline whether the premiere could be used. She decided the outcome first. Then arranged everyone else around it. At 2:40 Friday afternoon, Celeste's endorsement crisis began. The cosmetics brand requested clarification. A Swiss jewelry company paused a campaign scheduled for Monday. Her luxury luggage endorsement asked whether the public separation statement was accurate when made. No cancellations yet. Just lawyers reading morality, truthfulness, and reputational clauses. Gabriel called every 15 minutes. By 4, Celeste understood the cure choice had changed. If she corrected, some advertisers might penalize her for admitting a false public statement. If she refused and kept calling the separation true, Northline would likely remove her from Eden 4. There was no version where the premiere lie disappeared. Only different costs for acknowledging it. At 5:12, she signed the cure. I was not there. She did it at her agency. At 6 o'clock, her correction went live. No video. Written statement. Short. At Wednesday's premiere, I said Evan and I had been separated for some time. That was inaccurate. We had experienced private marital difficulties, and I had been considering separation, but we were still living as husband and wife. I should not have described our marriage differently in response to speculation involving another person. I am sorry to Evan and to everyone whose trust one compromised. No mention of Julian's sobriety. No medical information. No blaming publicist. No studio. No excuses. For 11 minutes, the internet seemed confused. Then it exploded. The original divorce clip resurfaced beside the correction. News sites used the word fabricated. Others used fake separation. Some accused her of an affair anyway. Some praised the correction. Some mocked her. Her cosmetics campaign suspended her that night. The jewelry brand followed Saturday morning. The luggage company did not. Neither did 3 smaller advertisers. Messy. Not total destruction. Northline reinstated her continuity approval at 6:22. Technically, Celeste had saved Eden 4. Except Julian was no longer in it. The studio announced his departure the following Monday. Creative reasons. Everyone knew better. Then came the final part of the committee's cure. Revised cast package. New male lead search. Financing reopened. Celeste remained attached. Hollywood had not ended her career. Not yet. But something fundamental had changed. Before the premiere, Celeste Arden was considered the safest star in one of the safest franchises in the business. Afterward, every company negotiating with her would read the same documents. Every insurer would ask about publicity risk. Every brand would know she had used a false personal narrative to protect a co-star. And every studio would know Northline, not Celeste, controlled whether she remained Mara Vey. One contract had not destroyed her. It had done something more dangerous first. It had forced the lie into the open before her fame could bury it. That night, she came home after issuing the correction. She stood in the kitchen. Same spot. Again. I signed it. I know. They're keeping me in Eden. For now. She flinched. Then nodded. Fair. I looked at her. Do you still want a divorce? The question seemed to surprise her. I don't know. That's different from Wednesday. Yes. Because you almost lost the movie? No. She looked directly at me. Because Wednesday I thought leaving you was something I could decide later. There it was. And now? Now I understand I already made a decision about us. Yes. She had. She may not have signed divorce papers. But she had told the world our marriage was disposable enough to be used as cover. Celeste whispered. What do you want? For the first time since she became famous, there was no publicist in the room. No contract committee. No audience. No narrative strategy. Just a question. I answered. I want you to move out. Her face went white. Evan. Not forever. I paused. I don't know. She started crying. Where? You own the house in Laurel Canyon. The one she bought with her own money for her mother years earlier, now empty. She nodded. When? Tonight. This time, she did not tell me to trust her. Did not say we could clean it up afterward. Did not ask me to survive one more temporary humiliation until the important thing was safe. She went upstairs. Packed. And 40 minutes later, the woman who had publicly ended our marriage to protect another man's career finally walked out of our home because her husband had made a decision she could not rewrite for the cameras. Celeste moved into the Laurel Canyon house Friday night. By Monday morning, Hollywood had decided I threw her out because she cheated with Julian. She had not. That distinction lasted approximately 4 hours online. Then a photograph appeared of Celeste carrying 2 suitcases into the house. A celebrity site added the headline. Celeste Arden moves out after admitting false divorce timeline. By noon. Evan North kicks out wife after Julian Cross scandal. By dinner. Eden power couple over? Nobody knew. That did not stop anyone. Celeste's team wanted us to issue a joint statement. I refused. Not because I wanted speculation. Because we had already learned what happened when a marriage became publicity inventory. Melissa agreed. Northline says nothing about your home. Good. Celeste can speak for herself. Also good. You understand silence may create worse stories. Yes. And you're okay with that? No. She smiled faintly. Better answer. The business story kept moving. Julian entered residential treatment. The studio began testing replacement actors for Eden 4. Celeste completed the remaining ashes of Eden publicity under the new writer. No unscripted relationship questions. No comments on Julian's treatment. No use of franchise press events to discuss our marriage. The movie opened to $186 million worldwide. A huge weekend. The scandal did not kill it. If anything, the attention probably helped. That created a dangerous temptation for everyone. Maybe nothing had really gone wrong. The film made money. Celeste kept the role. Julian was getting help. Northline's approval was restored. Move on. Then Jonah found the contract. Not the Northline contract. Celeste's. Her 5-year exclusivity agreement with Monarch Studios. I had read it when she signed. So had Melissa. Celeste had attorneys. Agents. Business managers. Nobody had missed anything legally. We had simply never expected one clause to matter. Jonah walked into my office Tuesday morning carrying a 47-page agreement. You remember Section 9? Probably not. You should. He put it down. Competitive services and outside lead restrictions. Celeste had agreed that while Monarch held an active option for her services in the Eden cycle, she could not accept another starring role in a theatrical action fantasy franchise without studio consent. Normal enough. Monarch was paying for exclusivity. The strange part was the timing. Each Eden sequel option had an exercise window. The studio normally exercised within 30 days after the prior movie opened. Once exercised, Celeste was locked into the next installment. If Monarch declined, she became free. But the agreement included an extension if rights holder approval or key cast certification remained unresolved. I stared at Jonah. How long? Up to 9 months. My stomach tightened. The clause had been designed for disputes between Monarch and Northline. If we argued over a director, a lead actor, script approval, rights issues, the studio could keep Celeste available while the franchise problem got resolved. 9 months. Her continuity approval is restored. Yes. So the extension shouldn't apply. Jonah turned a page. Not anymore. What do you mean? Monarch hasn't exercised her sequel option. Why? Because they want a franchise stabilization amendment first. Of course they did. What amendment? He handed me another document. Draft. Not signed. Monarch wanted changes before financing Eden 4. New publicity controls. Enhanced conduct representations. Mandatory disclosure of any planned public statement reasonably likely to affect franchise marketing. No unilateral narrative involving co-stars during campaign windows. All expected. Then I saw the real clause. Replacement protection. If any principal performer created a material publicity event resulting in financing delay, insurer concern, or documented loss of commercial partners, Monarch could request Northline approve an alternate performer for future installments. Not automatically replace. Request. Northline would have to evaluate in good faith. I looked at Jonah. They want an easier recast path. Yes. Celeste specifically? They'll claim it applies to every lead. Does it? Yes. But they wrote it because of her. Obviously. I kept reading. Then another clause. Option tolling. While a replacement request was under good faith review, Celeste's option window and competitive services restriction remained active. I stopped. No. Jonah nodded. That's my reaction. They can challenge her role and prevent her taking another franchise job while we decide? Potentially. For how long? 6 months under the draft. That is unacceptable. Agreed. There it was again. Limbo. Exactly what I had told Melissa I would not permit. Reject it. Jonah leaned back. Monarch says no amendment, no financing. Then renegotiate. We are. Without option tolling. Yes. And if they insist? He looked at me. Then we have a bigger problem. What? They may not make Eden 4. That got my attention. Monarch did not own the underlying rights. Northline did. But Monarch controlled distribution and held a negotiated sequel window. If they chose not to finance the 4th film, eventually rights could revert fully to us for another studio. Eventually. Years, depending on development triggers. And Celeste's attachment contract with Monarch could remain relevant through part of that process. The one franchise agreement that made her a star had become a maze. Does Celeste know? Her agent does. And? Gabriel wants you to personally guarantee Northline won't approve a recast. I laughed. No. He says without that, she can't plan her career. I am recused from her continuity decisions. Review is over. Conflict isn't. Good point. I was still her husband. Separated husband. Majority owner. Worst possible person to promise her future role. Jonah said. Gabriel also wants Monarch to release her competitive restriction if they don't exercise by the original 30-day window. That I support. So do we. That surprised me. Studio? Refused. Of course. Because Celeste Arden remained valuable even while risky. Monarch did not want to commit. Also did not want another studio taking her. That was how careers got trapped without anyone technically firing you. I called Melissa. She read the documents. Then said. Celeste needs independent counsel on this. She has it. I mean independent from the people who negotiated her original deal. Why? Because Gabriel's agency has other Monarch clients. Conflict. Not necessarily misconduct. But incentives. Agents want relationships with studios. Studios want talent flexible. Celeste needed someone whose only job was protecting Celeste. I sent her one message. Have outside counsel review Section 9 before you agree to anything. Not Gabriel's regular deal team. She replied 6 minutes later. Why are you helping me? I stared at the screen. Then. Because being separated doesn't make a bad contract good. No response. 2 hours later. Thank you. That evening, she called. First personal conversation since she moved out. Do you know someone? For what? Outside entertainment counsel. Yes. Will they think they're working for you? If I refer them, maybe. Then don't. Good. She found her own. A woman named Priya Desai. Former studio business affairs executive. Brutal reputation. Celeste apparently loved her within 30 minutes. Priya's conclusion was worse than mine. The studio doesn't want to fire you, Celeste told me the next night. What do they want? To make me unable to leave while they decide whether they still want me. Exactly. What does Priya recommend? Demand exercise or release. Good. Monarch says no. Expected. They say the franchise is too unstable because Julian's recast isn't settled. Also expected. Then Priya asked something nobody else asked. What? Celeste paused. Whether Northline still wants me. There it was. Not me. Northline. The question everybody had been dancing around. I don't answer that alone. I know. You signed the cure. Yes. Approval restored. Yes. That is Northline's current position. Current. I heard the fear. Celeste had never understood how much psychological safety came from my ownership. The studio could threaten. Agents could negotiate. Brands could pause. But underneath it all, her husband controlled the company that owned Marave. She had always assumed the role was safe. Not because I had promised it in writing. Because I loved her. That assumption had hidden inside the business for years. Now she was discovering what the contract actually said when love was removed from the interpretation. Evan. Yes? If we divorce, do you want me out of Eden? I hated the question. No. Immediate. She went quiet. Really? Yes. Why? Because you're good in the role. She started crying. I continued before she could turn it into hope. That doesn't mean forever. I know. If the next film needs a different actress for business or creative reasons, Northline must be allowed to decide that. I know. And I won't promise otherwise because we're married. I know. Another silence. Then. I thought the contract guaranteed me 5 movies. No. I know that now. You had lawyers. I know. So how did you think that? Her answer took a long time. Because every time the studio pushed for something, you said you'd protect the character. Not her. The character. But I understood how she had heard it. And because you never once suggested recasting me. You gave me no reason. Until now. Yes. She breathed in. That feels awful. I know. No, I mean realizing I treated your confidence in me like contract language. That was honest. I thought some things were guaranteed because you were my husband. There it was. Same mistake. Different surface. Marriage turning uncertainty into assumed ownership. Celeste said. I don't want you to guarantee anything now. Good. I just don't want Monarch trapping me. Neither do I. That was one area where our interests aligned. Not as spouses. As rights holder and performer. Northline joined Celeste's demand. Exercise the sequel option within the original window or release her from competitive restrictions. Monarch refused again. Then Priya did something aggressive. She sent a formal notice reserving Arden House's right to challenge continued exclusivity if Monarch failed to exercise while simultaneously preventing Celeste from accepting outside work. That moved the dispute from negotiation into potential arbitration. Entertainment press got nothing. For once. Everybody kept quiet. Then an outside opportunity arrived. The irony was perfect. Aurora Pictures offered Celeste the lead in Black Meridian. New spy thriller. Not fantasy. Potential franchise. $20 million salary. 3-picture option. Director with 2 Oscar nominations. The kind of role an actress took when she wanted to prove she existed outside one character. Celeste wanted it. Badly. She called me immediately. Priya says Monarch may block it. Under competitive services? Yes. Is spy action close enough to action fantasy? They say yes. You say? We say no. That dispute alone could take months. When do they need an answer? 10 days. There it was. The first actual career cost of the contract. Not a lost endorsement. Not bad headlines. A role she might lose because the studio that had not yet committed to her next film still controlled what she could accept. Can Northline waive anything? No. Studio contract. Yes. I could not save her. That realization affected both of us. For years, Celeste's career problems came to me because Northline owned rights. This one did not. She had signed her own exclusivity. Her lawyers had negotiated it. Her company had accepted the money. The contract belonged to her. Aurora waited 6 days. Then 7. Monarch still refused consent. On day 8, Aurora cast another actress. No scandal. No announcement about Celeste. The trade simply published. Lena Voss to lead Aurora's Black Meridian. That was how a $20 million opportunity disappeared. No one ended Celeste's career. One contract said no while another studio needed yes. She came to my house that night. Asked before entering. I let her in. She sat in our kitchen and stared at the article on her phone. I could have done that role. Yes. I loved the script. I know. They wouldn't even wait 10 days. They have a production schedule. I know. She threw the phone onto the table. This is insane. Yes. I made them $700 million. Monarch? Yes. And they won't release me. No. Because they might want me later. Yes. She laughed bitterly. Hollywood marriage. I almost smiled. Possessive without commitment. That sounds familiar. The joke died between us. Then she looked at me. Is that what I did to you? I knew what she meant. Wednesday night. She was considering leaving. Had spoken to a lawyer. Had not told me. Still kissed me. Still expected me at the premiere. Still expected home afterward. She wanted the freedom to decide later while publicly using the marriage now. Yes. Her face changed. You kept me attached while privately deciding whether you still wanted me. She lowered her eyes. Yes. And when you needed the marriage for something. I used it. Yes. She started crying. For once, I did not comfort her. Not because she did not deserve comfort. Because the comparison belonged to her. She needed to sit with it. After a while she asked. Do you want me to come home? No. She nodded. No argument. Do you want to divorce me? I don't know. That still hurts. I know. What am I supposed to do? Nothing. She looked confused. You don't need to manage my answer. That was new for both of us. Build your own life while I figure out whether I still want to share mine. Her eyes filled again. Then she nodded. Okay. The next morning, Priya filed for expedited arbitration against Monarch over the exclusivity provision. Not to terminate Celeste's entire contract. To force a decision. Exercise the sequel option. Or release her enough to work elsewhere. The hearing was set for 3 weeks later. At the same time, Monarch finally sent Northline its proposed cast package for Eden 4. New male lead. Revised financing. Reduced budget. And one unexpected recommendation. Celeste Arden would return as Mara Vey. But only for one final film. No fifth picture option. No extension. No long-term franchise guarantee. The studio wanted an ending. A controlled exit. Their risk committee no longer wanted Celeste as the decade-long face of the property. Jonah placed the proposal on my desk. I stared at the line. Final appearance, Celeste Arden. That was when I understood how the contract might actually end her Hollywood career. Not by firing her overnight. By keeping her attached just long enough to prevent escape. Then releasing her after the industry had already learned to build its next franchises without her. And this time, there was no husband clause anywhere in the agreement that could guarantee she would still have somewhere equally big to go. Celeste's arbitration hearing lasted 92 minutes. The arbitrator did not care about our marriage. That helped her. Monarch's lawyers opened with contract language. Celeste's 5-year deal gave the studio an exclusive option over her services for additional Eden films. The agreement also restricted competing franchise work while that option remained pending under certain development conditions. They argued the current delay was exactly the kind of situation the clause had been written for. A lead actor had been replaced. Financing had shifted. Northline and Monarch were renegotiating cast terms. Development was active. Therefore, exclusivity remained active. Priya Desai did not dispute the words. She attacked the result. You cannot tell an actor, we have not decided whether we employ you, while simultaneously telling the rest of the market, you may not employ her either. Monarch's lawyer replied. We paid for that exclusivity. You paid for exclusivity tied to a real option process. And the option process is ongoing. For how long? The contract permits extension. Only while rights holder approval or cast certification is genuinely unresolved. It is unresolved. Priya smiled. Not anymore. Then she produced Monarch's own cast proposal. The one Jonah had shown me. New male lead. Reduced budget. Celeste returning for one final film. No fifth picture option. No long-term attachment. Monarch had already decided what it wanted. Celeste for Eden 4. Then goodbye. Priya's point was simple. If the studio had made a substantive cast decision, it could not keep pretending her status was too uncertain to exercise the option while using that uncertainty to block outside work. The arbitrator asked Monarch. Is Ms. Arden your intended lead for the fourth installment? Long pause. Yes. Then why has the option not been exercised? Because the revised financing package is not complete. Is her participation contingent on that financing? Yes. Would you release her if financing fails? Eventually. The arbitrator raised an eyebrow. Eventually is not a contractual date. That was the first good sign. Celeste told me later she nearly smiled. Priya did not. She kept pushing. Monarch had already stopped Celeste from taking Black Meridian. That was not hypothetical damage. A $20 million offer had expired. The studio argued Aurora's project might have violated the competitive services restriction anyway. Priya answered. Then consent could have been formally denied on that basis. Instead, Monarch had refused to commit to Celeste while refusing to release her. The arbitrator called a recess. 20 minutes. When she returned, she gave neither side what it wanted completely. Monarch retained the right to exercise Celeste's Eden 4 option. But it received 5 business days. Not 9 months. Not 6. 5 days. If Monarch exercised, Celeste remained bound for the fourth film under the negotiated terms. If it did not, the competitive services restriction expired automatically except for direct exploitation of the Mara Vey character and Eden intellectual property. Celeste could take other franchise work. Clean. Not freedom yet. A deadline. Sometimes that is almost as valuable. Celeste called me from outside the hearing. We won. Partly. I'm celebrating for 30 seconds. Go ahead. She screamed. Not loudly. Enough. Then. Okay. Done. 5 days? Yes. Monarch will exercise. You think? They already proposed you. Silence. Then. For one movie. There it was. The part that hurt more than exclusivity. For almost 8 years, Celeste had been Mara Vey. Magazine covers. Billboards. Action figures. Fashion campaigns. International premieres. The franchise had not merely made her famous. It had organized her career. Monarch now wanted one final performance, then separation. Do you want to do it? I asked. Yes. Immediate. Good. Even knowing it's the last one? Yes. Why? Because Mara deserves an ending. That was an actress answer. Not a career answer. I liked it. Then. And because I'm not letting my last scene in the franchise be me lying about our marriage outside a premiere. That was more personal. Fair. 5 days later, Monarch exercised. Full option. Celeste was officially attached to Eden 4. The studio also accepted a revised Northline agreement. No option tolling beyond production. No fifth film lock. No competitive restriction after principal photography and defined promotional obligations. Celeste would leave the franchise free. That part mattered. No one would be allowed to hold her until Hollywood forgot her. But freedom and opportunity were different things. The studio announced the fourth film 2 weeks later. New male lead. Darius Cole. 40. Stage-trained. 2 acclaimed thrillers. No scandal. Extremely insurable. Hollywood loved him immediately. The press release called Eden 4 the conclusion of Mara Vey's journey. No fifth installment. No mention of replacing Celeste. Just conclusion. Elegant. Corporate. Final. Her fans were furious. They blamed Monarch. They blamed me. They blamed Julian. They blamed Tessa. Some blamed Celeste. The truth was more complicated. Northline approved the one-film ending because creatively it worked. Jonah liked it. The director liked it. The studio wanted it. And Celeste herself ultimately agreed. I did not vote. Again. People assumed I forced her out anyway. That was unavoidable. The first weeks of pre-production were brutal for her. Not because anyone treated her badly. Because they didn't. Everyone was professional. That somehow made the change more obvious. Darius arrived with no emotional history. No rescuing. No private crisis. No management problem. He knew his lines. Showed up early. Went home. The production did not orbit Celeste and Julian anymore. It functioned. She hated how easy that looked. One night she called me from Vancouver. We shot 12 pages today. Good? No reset. That's good. Darius is annoyingly competent. Tragic. He doesn't need anything from me. I understood immediately. Julian had needed her. Not romantically. Emotionally. Professionally. He had been fragile enough that helping him became part of Celeste's identity on set. Darius did not need saving. That left her with only acting. She said, "I think I confused being needed with being important." That was a painful sentence. Maybe. You could sound less pleased. I'm not pleased. You always say that. Because you keep discovering things that hurt. Silence. Then, do you still love me? There it was. Months separated. No filing yet. No reconciliation. I answered honestly. Yes. She breathed in. Do you want me home? No. Another silence. Okay. She had gotten better at hearing answers she did not want. Not good. Better. Production continued. Then Celeste's career problem became visible outside Eden. Her agent sent her 12 scripts. Before the scandal, maybe 8 of them would have come with serious offers. Now only 3 did. One prestige streaming drama. One supporting role in a political thriller. One mid-budget horror film. No $20 million franchise lead. No studio tentpole. No luxury romantic epic. Nothing remotely the scale she was used to. Gabriel blamed the market. Priya blamed risk. Both were right. Celeste was still famous. Still bankable. Still talented. But her category had changed. Before, studios saw reliable global franchise lead. After, they saw excellent actress with recent publicity breach, brand losses, contractual dispute, and a very public connection between personal narrative and co-star crisis management. Not unhireable. Riskier. Risk has a price. Sometimes it appears as lower salary. Sometimes smaller roles. Sometimes simply another actress getting called first. Celeste turned down the horror movie. Considered the streaming drama. Then asked me something surprising. What would you choose? No. She laughed. You don't even know the question. I know enough. Why won't you give career advice anymore? Because you still hear my opinion like leverage. That silenced her. Then she said, I'm trying not to. I know. But until I believe you can disagree with me without hearing husband, rights holder, producer, and investor all at once, you need people who are only advising your career. Priya. Yes. Gabriel. Maybe. She laughed. Fair. Then she asked. Can I tell you what I want without asking what I should do? Yes. I want the streaming show. Why? The character is 42. So? She's divorced. That seems dangerous. She's not glamorous. Even more dangerous. No franchise. Terrifying. She laughed. Then became serious. She loses an election in episode 1 and spends the rest of the season trying to figure out who she is when nobody needs her public face anymore. I stared at the phone. That is subtle. I know. Did they send it because of the scandal? Probably. Does that bother you? Yes. And? The script is still good. There it was. Opportunity can arrive through humiliation and still be opportunity. She took it. Salary. $1.8 million for the season. A fraction of her Eden money. She did not negotiate it up much. Her agent hated that. She cared more about the part. Filming would begin after Eden 4. For the first time in years, her next job was not guaranteed by a franchise machine. She had chosen it. That changed her. Slowly. Meanwhile, our marriage remained exactly where I had left it. Separate houses. Weekly dinner sometimes. No public statement. No legal filing. Celeste stopped asking when she could come home. That actually made it harder for me. Anger is simpler when the person keeps pushing. She didn't. Then the Eden 4 shoot reached its final week. Northline had a closed-set visit scheduled for investors. I went. Not for Celeste. For the movie. At least that was what I told myself. The final scene she shot as Mara Vey took place on a mountain road at dawn. No explosions. No stunt work. Mara simply walked away from the ruined city she had spent 4 films trying to save. The director called cut. Then nobody moved. Celeste stood in costume. Dust on her face. Blood makeup near her temple. The crew began applauding. Quietly at first. Then louder. 8 years. 4 films. Thousands of people. A character that had changed all our lives. Celeste started crying. The director hugged her. Darius hugged her. Crew members came forward. I stayed behind the monitors. She saw me anyway. Our eyes met. For 1 second, I expected her to come over. She didn't. She finished with the crew. Thanked people. Took photographs. Returned costume pieces. Then eventually walked toward me. No cameras. No publicist. Was it okay? She asked. The take? Yes. It was good. Just good? Very good. She smiled through tears. Then looked back at the set. That's it. Yes. No more Mara. No. She exhaled. I thought losing her would feel like losing my career. Does it? A little. That honesty mattered. Then. But maybe I built too much of my life around things other people had to keep approving. Studio. Franchise. Brands. Fans. Me. She looked at me. Do you know what I'm most scared of? What? That you're another one. My chest tightened. You are. Her face fell. I continued. But marriage is supposed to work that way. She stared. Not approval. Choice. I choose whether I stay. You choose whether you stay. Neither of us gets a permanent option. She gave a broken laugh. Priya would hate this contract. Terrible enforceability. Zero guarantees. Exactly. Then she asked. Are you going to divorce me? I looked at the woman who had just filmed the ending of the role I helped put in her hands. Months earlier, I would have answered from anger. Now I had enough distance to know anger was not the only thing left. I'm meeting Melissa tomorrow. Her face went still. For divorce? Yes. She swallowed. Have you decided? No. Then why meet? Because I need to know what ending this marriage actually requires before I keep pretending indecision is neutral. She nodded. No begging. No sudden promise. Just. Okay. The next morning, I sat across from Melissa while she opened a folder containing 16 years of shared property, Northline conflict rules, premarital assets, Celeste's earnings, and the legal machinery required to divide a marriage that Hollywood already thought had ended months earlier. The irony was almost funny. Celeste had once announced our divorce because she believed the domestic side could be cleaned up afterward. Now the franchise was ending. Her next career had already begun shrinking into something smaller and maybe more honest. And I was finally deciding whether the divorce she invented for television was about to become the one statement she made that eventually came true. Melissa did not ask whether I still loved Celeste. She asked what I wanted the divorce to accomplish. That was why I paid her. We sat in her office overlooking Wilshire Boulevard with 16 years of marriage reduced to folders. House. Accounts. Retirement assets. Celeste's Laurel Canyon property. My Northline shares. Her Arden House earnings. Residuals. Back-end participations. Insurance. Taxes. There were no children. No custody fight. No secret offshore accounts. No dramatic argument about who owned what. Our prenup had been written before Eden existed. Then amended when Celeste's income exploded and Northline became worth enough that every lawyer in Los Angeles suddenly became interested in our marriage. It was surprisingly clean. Northline remained mine. Arden House remained hers. Assets purchased jointly would be divided. Each kept separate professional earnings after separation. Neither had a claim on the other's future work. Melissa looked at me. You could file today. I stared at the draft petition. Would you? She leaned back. You don't pay me to decide whether you want to be married. I'm asking as a human being. That's more expensive. I almost smiled. Then she became serious. You have been separated for months. Yes. She publicly announced a divorce before the separation even existed. Yes. And since then? She stopped lying. That's a low bar. I know. She respected the business review. Yes. Accepted the cure? Yes. Moved out when you asked? Yes. Pressured you to take her back? No. Affair? No. Do you trust her? That was the question. Not the way I did. Do you think you can? I don't know. Melissa closed the folder. Then don't file because the internet expects an ending. Good advice. But don't remain married because she is behaving better after nearly destroying it either. Also good. What do you recommend? Set a decision date. I hated that. Contracts again. Deadlines. Option windows. Yet maybe indefinite uncertainty was its own form of control. How long? 30 days. I looked at her. That feels arbitrary. So is waiting forever. Fair. I agreed. 30 days. At the end, I would either file or ask Celeste to begin actual reconciliation. No more unnamed middle. I told her that night. We met at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. Private table. No photographers. No team. 30 days, she repeated. Yes. And then you decide. We decide whether there's a marriage to work on. She looked at me. I already know my answer. I know. You're the one deciding. That's why I don't like the wording. But it's true. She was right. The marriage had reached the point where I held the option. The irony was not lost on either of us. Celeste stirred her water. What happens if your answer is no? We file. And business? Separate. Eden? Separate. She nodded. Then. I'm trying very hard not to ask whether Northline still wants me. Good. She smiled painfully. I hate that you're proud of that. I'm not proud. You sound proud. Maybe a little. That was the last calm conversation we had before the contract took another job from her. 3 days later, Monarch changed the Eden 4 production schedule. Not because of Celeste. Darius Cole tore a tendon during stunt rehearsal. Nothing catastrophic. No scandal. No negligence. 6 weeks before he could safely return to full action work. The production rearranged what it could. Second unit plates. Celeste's solo scenes. Supporting cast. Interior work. But several major sequences depended on both leads. Principal photography would now finish almost 7 weeks later than planned. Celeste called me from Vancouver. I have a problem. Darius? He's fine. Then? The streaming show. I remembered. The political drama. Her first real post-Eden role. When do they start? 8 weeks. That sounded close but possible. Then she said. Monarch says I owe them first position availability through delivery. I stopped. Of course. Her Eden 4 option. The contract that had controlled her for years. Through principal photography. Through completion of required services. How broad? Reshoots. ADR. Principal publicity. And schedule changes? Production-related extensions within the outside date. There it was. What's the outside date? 11 weeks after the original wrap. So Monarch can hold you. Yes. For 7 weeks. Yes. And the series? Won't move. I closed my eyes. Priya? On it. Can they shoot around you? They've already said no. The streaming series had 10 episodes. Celeste was the lead. Every storyline ran through her. They had sound stages booked. Other actors under short availability windows. A director scheduled for another film afterward. Moving a major television production 7 weeks to accommodate an actress was not impossible. It was expensive. And Celeste was no longer the actress studios rearranged entire calendars around without thinking. She knew it too. They gave me 48 hours. For what? Guarantee my start date or they recast. Can you guarantee it? No. There was no dramatic decision for me to make. Northline did not control performer scheduling. Monarch did. Celeste had signed the contract. The production delay fell within its legitimate extension period. No breach. No retaliation. No revenge. Just a clause doing exactly what it was written to do. She said. Can Northline pressure them? There it was. The old reflex. Then she stopped herself. No. I said nothing. Forget I asked. I understand why you did. They need your rights. Yes. You could make them negotiate. Probably. She went quiet. I continued. But I'm not threatening franchise approvals because my separated wife has another job. I know. It would be improper. I know. And it could hurt the film. I know. Each answer quieter. Then. I really hate learning ethics while my career burns. I almost laughed. I believe you. Priya tried anyway. She proposed carve-outs. Celeste could leave Vancouver on weekends. Shoot the series while Monarch held only narrow call priority. Bank her Eden scenes. Complete ADR remotely. Monarch offered limited flexibility but refused to release first position status until principal photography finished. The problem was not whether Celeste could physically work 2 jobs. The problem was risk. If Darius's recovery slipped again, Eden needed her. If weather delayed location shooting, Eden needed her. If reshoots were scheduled, Eden needed her. Monarch had paid $14 million plus back-end for priority. The contract gave them priority. The streaming platform was not willing to build a $60 million season around, probably available. 48 hours later, Celeste lost the role. No public fight. No lawsuit. No headline about punishment. The producer called her personally. Apologized. Said they loved her. Said they hoped to find something together later. Then cast Emily Graves. 39. 2 Emmy nominations. No scheduling restriction. The trades announced it that afternoon. Celeste did not call me. She texted one line. Second job that contract cost me. Black Meridian. Now the series. Except this time the comparison was even crueler. Black Meridian had been lost because Monarch would not release exclusivity while deciding whether it wanted her. This job was lost after Monarch had exercised. The contract had become completely legitimate. She had signed up for one final Eden film. The final film now came first. Exactly as written. There was nobody to sue. Nobody to expose. Nobody to punish. At 9 o'clock that night, she called. I answered. I fired Gabriel. That surprised me. Why? He negotiated the deal. Years ago. Yes. Was the clause unusual? No. That mattered. Then why fire him? Because when I asked why nobody warned me this could happen, he said something. What? He said, we assumed Northline would always work around you. I went silent. There it was. The hidden term. Not written anywhere. Evan will fix it. Celeste continued. My lawyers negotiated a restrictive contract because everybody assumed my husband controlled the company on the other side. Did you assume that too? Yes. Immediate. I never worried about the outside date. Because? If another opportunity mattered enough, I thought you'd pressure Monarch. I rubbed my forehead. I probably would have. I know. That was difficult to admit. Before premiere night, if Celeste had landed a prestige show and Eden delayed unexpectedly, would I have called Monarch? Absolutely. Would Northline have traded some approval concession or marketing term to free her schedule? Probably. Not because the contract required it. Because she was my wife. Which meant her deal had always been less restrictive in practice than it looked on paper. Until she destroyed the personal relationship that made everyone believe exceptions would be easy. Celeste whispered. So the contract didn't change. No. You did. Yes. She inhaled sharply. Fair. I hated hearing her say that. Not because it was wrong. Because I could see how the story would look later. Vindictive producer husband refuses to save actress wife. One contract ends her career. But there was a difference between hurting Celeste and refusing to bend a company around her after she made our marriage unusable as hidden leverage. I'm sorry you lost the show. I know. I mean it. I know. Then she asked. If we were still okay, would you have helped? Truth mattered. Yes. She cried. Quietly. I think that's worse. I know. Because now she understood exactly what she had lost. Not contractual rights. Grace. The unwritten accommodations people give inside relationships they trust. You cannot sue for grace. You cannot arbitrate it. You cannot point to Section 9 and demand your husband spend corporate leverage because he used to love making your life easier. Celeste still had Eden for $14 million. Back end. One final global campaign. More money than most actors would earn in a lifetime. Calling her ruined would have been obscene. But careers are not measured only in bank balances. Momentum mattered. Age mattered. Availability mattered. Hollywood had already begun replacing her in projects that would occupy the next 2 or 3 years. Every lost role created a new actress who became easier to call next time. By the time Eden 4 finished, Celeste would be 41. Still beautiful. Still famous. Still talented. But no longer attached to a franchise. 2 major comeback opportunities already gone. 3 luxury brands no longer using her. And a public scandal every studio business affairs department would see before making a large offer. That was how an A-list career ended in reality. Not one phone call. Not a blacklist. Opportunity moved around you while your contract kept you standing still. The divorce decision clock kept running. 21 days. Then 16. Then 12. Celeste stayed in Vancouver. I stayed in Los Angeles. We talked less. Not because we hated each other. Because every conversation seemed to expose another part of our marriage that had also functioned as a business arrangement without either of us admitting it. On day 9, she sent me a photograph. Her old Eden costume from the first film. Cheap leather. Poor stitching. Tiny budget. She had found it in storage. Underneath. "Do you remember when nobody knew who we were?" I replied. "Yes. Then. Were we happier?" I stared at that for a long time. Finally. "We were simpler." "That's not the same thing." She sent no answer. Day 4. Melissa emailed me the divorce petition. Final draft. No surprises. I printed it. Put it on my desk. Did not sign. The following morning, Monarch called an emergency cast meeting. Darius's recovery had developed a complication. Not career-threatening, but enough to delay full stunt work another month. The studio had 3 choices. Delay production again. Rewrite major sequences. Or extend Celeste's outside date to the maximum allowed under her contract and keep shooting everything possible around him. They chose the third. The final Eden film would now occupy almost every remaining week of her contractual availability. And then Priya called me. Not as Celeste's lawyer asking for help. As a courtesy. "Evan, you should know before the trades do." What? The agency projections changed. What projections? Celeste's post-Eden theatrical market. I went still. Priya continued. Her new representatives had quietly tested availability with 7 major studios. Not offers. Conversations. Would they consider Celeste for upcoming female leads? 1 said maybe for ensemble. 2 suggested supporting roles. 3 had nothing suitable. 1 passed specifically because its insurer considered her too expensive relative to current box office certainty after the publicity incident and loss of brand support. No studio franchise lead. No $20 million vehicle. No immediate replacement for Mara Vey. The contract is eating the exact window she needed to rebuild, Priya said. I know. And there may be nothing we can do. I know. She hesitated. She doesn't blame you. That surprised me. She should not. I agree. Then why say it? Priya answered the question anyway. Because she finally understands the cruel part. What cruel part? The contract ending her career isn't the clause itself. I waited. It's that the contract was always survivable while everyone assumed her husband would bend the surrounding business to protect her. Silence. When that assumption disappeared, she discovered what she actually signed. That night, there was 1 day left on my 30-day deadline. The divorce petition sat unsigned on my desk. Celeste was still in Vancouver finishing a franchise that had made her one of the most recognizable women in the world. And the same agreement that had once guaranteed years of blockbuster work was now consuming the months she needed to prove she could become something after it. Tomorrow I had to decide whether our marriage ended too. But for the first time, that decision was no longer the thing Celeste feared most. Because 1 contract had already begun doing what no scandal, no publicist, no angry husband could accomplish overnight. Hollywood was moving on without waiting for her to become available. The 30-day deadline ended at 9:14 on a Thursday morning. I signed the divorce petition. No cameras. No press line. No 18 million viewers. Just black ink on paper in Melissa Grant's office. That was the difference between the divorce Celeste invented and the one I chose. The first had been a story. The second was a decision. Melissa watched me cap the pen. You're sure? No. She frowned. That is usually not what I want to hear after someone signs. I'm sure I can't go back to the marriage we had. That's different. Yes. Do you want to stop? I looked at the signature. Then shook my head. No. She filed that afternoon. Celeste was served through counsel in Vancouver. I had asked Melissa not to send someone to set. Not because Celeste deserved special treatment. Because a process server walking onto a $200 million production would turn our marriage into publicity again. I wanted the opposite. Priya accepted service for her. Celeste called me 20 minutes later. I answered. You filed. Yes. Silence. I thought I was prepared. I'm sorry. Don't. Her voice broke. Please don't apologize for finally doing the thing I told the world you were going to do. That sentence hurt. Then. Is there someone else? No. Was that stupid to ask? No. Do you hate me? No. Then why? I closed my eyes. Because love was still there. That was the part she could not understand. Maybe I had not understood it either. I don't want to spend the rest of our marriage wondering what becomes disposable when you decide someone else needs saving. She said nothing. I know you understand what you did. I know you've changed how you handle work. I know you stopped trying to control the contract dispute. I know you've respected every boundary I gave you. Her breathing became unsteady. But I don't want to stay married because you performed the correct response after breaking the thing. She started crying. I don't know how to fix that. I know. That was the tragedy. Some mistakes have repair instructions. Correct the statement. Pay the costs. Accept the writer. Complete the contract. Marriage did not. She whispered. Do you still love me? Yes. That made her cry harder. If you said no, this would be easier. I know. Can I ask one thing? Yes. Don't let the press find out from the court docket before I tell my mother. Okay. That was the last favor she asked. Not the franchise. Not a role. Not Northline. 1 hour. I gave her 3. The divorce became public by evening anyway. Celebrity reporters monitor Los Angeles court filings. The headline wrote itself. Evan North files for divorce months after Celeste Arden's false live announcement. Then the crueler ones. Celeste's fake divorce becomes real. Actress who lied about split now actually losing husband. Julian Cross scandal ends Hollywood power marriage. I hated the last one. Julian had become an easy villain because he was male, attractive, troubled, and standing next to Celeste when she announced it. But he had not made her do anything. His treatment program released a statement through his representative that same week. He was continuing outpatient recovery. He had accepted responsibility for violating the conduct conditions attached to Eden 4. He wished the production well. No mention of Celeste. Then, unexpectedly, he called me. First time since the premiere. I almost ignored it. Then answered. Evan. Julian. I heard. So did everyone. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for the divorce. I'm apologizing for the night at Bel Air. I waited. I shouldn't have been drinking. No. I shouldn't have called Celeste upstairs. That was new. She said you were panicking. I was. Then why shouldn't you have called her? Because I knew she'd come. There it was. Not malicious. Still important. Julian continued. She always came. When I was having problems. When press was bad. When I thought the studio hated me. She fixed things. I leaned against my desk. Did you know she was considering leaving me? No. Did you know Tessa was planning the separation story? Not until after. I know. He exhaled. I told her not to do it after. Too late. Yes. Then. I used her too. I did not answer. Not like she used you. But I knew if I fell apart, she'd make me her responsibility. That was more honest than I expected. Why are you telling me this? Because rehab has a lot of annoying questions. I almost laughed. And? One of them is what happens when people keep rescuing you from consequences. Good question. I let Celeste believe keeping me functional was part of her job. That doesn't make the divorce announcement your fault. I know. Good. He was not trying to steal her responsibility. Neither was I. Julian said. I'm not asking you to forgive her. Good. I just don't want you thinking she did it because she wanted me. I don't. Another silence. Then. Take care of yourself. He laughed weakly. Trying. We never spoke again. The divorce itself was almost boring. That surprised the internet. No war over Northline. No demand for half the franchise. No accusations of abuse. No claims of infidelity. The amended prenup held. Celeste kept Laurel Canyon. Her Arden House assets. Her earnings. Her residuals. I kept Northline. The Brentwood house was mine under the amended property agreement, though I paid out her documented contribution to renovations. Joint investment accounts were divided under the formula we had already agreed years earlier. No spousal support. Neither requested it. The only real disagreement involved a painting. A ridiculous abstract canvas we bought in Santa Fe before either of us had money. Worth maybe $8,000. Emotionally worth more. We both wanted it. Melissa expected a fight. Celeste solved it. Evan can keep it. Her lawyer asked why. Celeste answered. Because I chose the stupid thing. The stupid thing was the painting. The artist had told us it represented a storm over a desert. Celeste insisted it looked like two people arguing under a blanket. We bought it because we laughed for 20 minutes. I almost gave it back after hearing that. Didn't. Divorce was already forcing both of us to stop turning every gesture into a message. Then production finally wrapped. 7 weeks late. 3 months after Celeste lost the streaming series. Monarch released her from first position availability exactly when the contract required. Not a day early. Not a day late. She was free. And for the first time in almost 8 years, nobody had already booked the next 2 years of her life. That freedom terrified her. Her new agency set meetings. Lots of them. She met directors, producers, streamers, independent financiers, prestige television companies. Nobody treated her like she was finished. That would have been simpler. Instead, they treated her like a former franchise star trying to determine her new price. The offers came. Just smaller. A supporting role as a senator in a political drama. $4 million. An antagonist in a streaming action film. 6. A limited series about a disgraced journalist. 3.2. One independent film for less than $1 million. Before Eden, any of those would have felt enormous. After years of $12 and $14 million franchise checks, they looked like evidence of decline. Celeste initially turned them all down. Priya called me. Not for approval. To ask whether I would speak to Celeste as someone who had known her before fame. I'm not her career advisor. I know. Then why me? Because she thinks accepting a $6 million supporting role proves everyone was right that she's finished. I sighed. That's not a legal problem. No. Then why is her lawyer calling me? Because I'm tired. Fair. I did not call Celeste. 3 days later, she called me. Am I washed up? No. You answered too fast. Because the question is ridiculous. I lost 2 leads. Yes. 3 brands. Yes. Eden. Eden ended. Same result. No. She became quiet. I continued. You keep using your old career as the minimum acceptable version of your new one. That sounds like something Priya said. She's smarter than both of us. Unfortunately. Then. If I take supporting roles, everyone will say I fell. Everyone already says everything. She laughed once. I continued. You were an actress before you were Mara Vey. I know. Do you still want to act? Silence. Yes. Then act. That was all. No Northline leverage. No contract solution. No husband fixing the path. Just the question underneath everything. Do you still want the work when it no longer proves you are at the top? 2 weeks later, Celeste accepted the independent film. $875,000. 24-day shoot. No explosions. No franchise option. No luxury campaign. She played a woman whose younger sister disappeared 20 years earlier. The director was 29. Half Celeste's age. First feature. Her agent thought she was crazy. Priya thought it was smart. I read the script only after she signed. It was excellent. The divorce became final before the movie premiered. 8 months after I filed. Almost a year after Celeste announced it live. The court entered the judgment on a Monday. Melissa emailed me the stamped copy. I read my own name. Her name. Date of termination. 16 years reduced to official language. I expected relief. Instead, I sat alone in my office for nearly an hour. At 12:06, Celeste texted. It's final. I replied. I know. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Returned. Then. I'm sorry the first time I said it was for a camera. I stared at the message. That was probably the closest she could come to saying what needed to be said. I wrote. So am I. Nothing more. Her independent film premiered at Telluride 6 months later. No giant red carpet. No franchise branding. No 30-camera press line. She received the best reviews of her career. Not good for a movie star. Good. One critic wrote that Celeste seemed to have finally discovered how little she needed the machinery around her. She won a Critics' Prize. Then an Independent Spirit nomination. Not an Oscar. Not a career resurrection montage. Something smaller. Real. The same month, Eden 4 opened. Huge. 159 million worldwide opening weekend. Lower than the previous installment. Still massively profitable. Celeste's final performance was praised. Darius worked. The ending landed. Mara Vey walked away. The audience cried. Northline closed the franchise exactly where we had planned. At the Los Angeles premiere, Celeste and I attended separately. For the first time, neither of us was pretending otherwise. She walked the carpet. Answered film questions. When someone shouted, "Celeste, any message for Evan tonight?" she stopped. A year earlier, she would have managed the moment. Created the perfect answer. Protected everyone. This time she smiled. "No. Tonight is about the movie." Then she walked inside. I watched from farther down the carpet. That answer made me prouder than I wanted to admit. Because finally, she had learned that not every question required her to turn private life into public strategy. After the screening, we met in the lobby. She wore black. No diamonds. She looked older than premiere night 1 year earlier. Not worse. Just less polished into something immortal. "Good movie," she said. "Very. Good ending?" "Yes." She looked at me. "For Mara?" I knew what she was asking. "Yes." She smiled sadly. "Then, what about us?" I did not answer immediately. Our marriage was over. Legally. Practically. Emotionally, not completely. Maybe some relationships do not disappear when paperwork finishes. They change category. Memory. Grief. Respect. Love without ownership. I think ours ended when you announced it. Her eyes filled. I continued. The paperwork just caught up. She nodded. That hurts. I know. Probably true. Yes. She looked toward the theater doors where people were still applauding the film credits. Then she said, "I thought losing you would be the punishment." "No. I know now." "What was?" She smiled without humor. "Having to make every decision afterward without assuming someone would catch me if I chose wrong. That was it. Not poverty. Not exile. Not cancellation. Responsibility. The thing fame had insulated her from for years. She walked away from the premiere alone. Not destroyed. Not saved. And not yet aware that the smallest movie she had accepted after Hollywood moved on from her was about to give her one final choice. Chase the career she had lost. Or build one that no contract, co-star, studio, or husband would ever be able to guarantee again. The smallest film Celeste Arden had made in 15 years became the first one Hollywood could not explain with a franchise. It was called Where the River Ends. Budget. $9 million. Celeste's trailer was smaller than the bathroom in her Eden trailer. There were no international brand partners. No action figures. No contractual private jet. No studio social media team deciding when she could post a photograph. The movie opened in 24 theaters. Then 58. Then 112. It never became a blockbuster. It did something more inconvenient. It made money slowly. Good reviews kept it alive. Audience word of mouth expanded it. Celeste's performance became the center of every conversation. She played Mara Bell, a 43-year-old woman who had spent 20 years refusing to accept that her missing sister was probably dead. No glamorous entrance. No perfect hair. No romance subplot designed to create magazine covers. There was a 6-minute scene near the end where Celeste sat alone in an abandoned kitchen and admitted she had spent half her life trying to solve a loss because solving it felt easier than grieving it. I watched that scene at Telluride. I knew what everyone else in the theater saw. A performance. I knew what it had cost her to understand the sentence. Afterward, she received a standing ovation. Not the mechanical premiere applause of a franchise cast. People stood because the work had affected them. Celeste cried. Then did something she once would never have done. She left the theater without attending the afterparty. No press strategy. No visibility calculation. She went back to her hotel and called her mother. I learned that from her months later. We were no longer people who reported every evening to each other. That took getting used to. The film gave Celeste the best career opportunity she had received since Eden. And almost pulled her directly back into the same trap. Orion Crown Pictures called. One of Hollywood's largest studios. They were developing a new action franchise based on a best-selling espionage series. 3 movies. Possible streaming spin-off. Worldwide theatrical commitment. They wanted Celeste as the lead. Not supporting. Not mentor. Lead. 42-year-old female intelligence officer. No attempt to make her 28. No recasting her as somebody's mother while a younger actress handled the action. The first salary offer was $18 million. Back end. Producer credit. 3-picture option. Exactly the kind of deal her agents had said might never come again. The trade press leaked negotiations before she signed. Suddenly the language changed. Celeste Arden comeback. From Eden exit to new franchise. Arden poised to reclaim A-list status. Reclaim. As if the last 2 years had simply been a fall she could reverse by climbing onto another expensive machine. Priya sent the contract. Celeste read it herself this time. Every page. That alone was different. Then she found Section 12. First position exclusivity. Franchise publicity priority. Studio approval over competing theatrical work. Schedule extensions. 3-picture option controlled largely by Orion. Familiar structure. Better money. Different names. Same fundamental bargain. Hollywood would guarantee scale in exchange for control. Nothing improper about that. Actors signed these contracts every day. Celeste called Priya. What happens if movie 2 is delayed? You remain first position within the extension window. If they haven't exercised movie 3, depends on timing. Can I take television? Subject to approval. Another franchise? Almost certainly no. What if I want to make another where the river ends between movies? We negotiate carve-outs. And if they say no, you decide whether the $18 million is worth it. No villain. No unfairness. A choice. Then Celeste called me. We had not spoken in nearly 3 weeks. Can I ask you something? You can. Not as Northline. Good. Not as my ex-husband. That leaves very little. She laughed. As the person who knew me before any of this. I waited. Should I sign Orion? Old Celeste would have asked because she wanted my answer to reduce uncertainty. New Celeste caught herself. No. I said nothing. I asked wrong. Yes. She exhaled. Can I tell you why I'm scared? Of course. If I say no, everyone will think I couldn't get back. Maybe. If I say yes and it works, I'm A-list again. You're still famous. You know what I mean. I did. Salary. Opening weekend responsibility. First billing. International pre-sales. The invisible hierarchy nobody publicly admits exists. She continued. I spent 20 years getting to the point where studios built movies around me. Yes. And one stupid decision. She stopped. No. Good. Not one decision. I waited. The premiere exposed everything that was already wrong with how I worked. With how I used people. With how I assumed someone would fix the parts contracts didn't. Then. But I still want the big movie. That was important. Growth had not turned her into someone who despised success. I'd be worried if you pretended otherwise. She laughed. So what do I do? I can't tell you. I know. Then she said. I think I finally understand why that answer used to make me angry. Why? Because I wasn't asking for advice. I was asking you to share responsibility for whichever choice hurt later. There it was. She declined Orion. Not because franchise contracts were bad. Because she did not want another 5-year block of her life controlled by one role. The studio increased the offer. $22 million. She still declined. They cast someone else. A younger actress named Maya Trent. Excellent performer. No scandal. The first movie became a hit. Celeste watched it. Liked it. And admitted publicly that Maya was terrific. Entertainment reporters spent weeks trying to make that into humiliation. It wasn't. Celeste had chosen. Choice hurts differently when you actually own it. She signed 3 other projects instead. 1 independent drama. 1 8-episode limited series. 1 supporting role in a studio thriller. Combined salary less than the first Orion film. Combined creative freedom much greater. Her career never returned to what it had been. That is the part people usually get wrong when they tell stories like ours. There was no magical comeback where one acclaimed performance restored every endorsement. The jewelry company never returned. Neither did the cosmetics brand. Her quote on major studio films stayed below the $14 million Eden peak. She stopped being the first actress called for every global franchise. Younger stars entered the market. They should have. Hollywood did not freeze while Celeste learned lessons. By 45, she was no longer the woman whose face appeared on 6 billboards driving from LAX to Beverly Hills. She was something else. An actress directors wanted when the part was difficult. She produced smaller films, mentored younger performers without trying to manage their lives. She became known for refusing contracts that gave studios broad control over unrelated personal publicity. Her lawyers joked that nobody in Los Angeles read exclusivity provisions more carefully. One contract had ended her Hollywood career. The career she understood, anyway. The giant franchise version. The guaranteed premiere version. The version where everyone assumed Evan North would solve whatever the paper did not. It did not end her ability to act. Those were never the same thing. Northline changed too. Eden 4 became the final film in the original series. I resisted Monarch's request for an immediate reboot. Not because of Celeste. Because 4 movies were enough. 3 years later, Northline financed a completely different science fiction film. It failed. Badly. $80 million loss. I survived. Jonah reminded me of that constantly whenever I became too confident. Apparently nobody gets to remain the smartest person in the room forever. My relationship with Celeste settled into something I once would have considered impossible. We were not friends immediately. That word would have minimized too much. For a while, we were simply 2 people who had known each other for almost half our lives and no longer had the right to ask where the other slept. Birthdays came. We texted. Her mother got sick. I sent flowers. Jonah remarried. Celeste attended the wedding. We sat at different tables. No drama. No reunion. No drunken kiss. No entertainment site photograph worth publishing. Eventually the anger lost its daily weight. Not because I decided what Celeste did was acceptable. Because carrying the event every morning stopped protecting anything. 5 years after our divorce, Northline received an invitation to a retrospective screening of the first Eden movie. 20 years since the novels had been optioned. Cast. Crew. Fans. Old costumes. Production photographs. Celeste came. So did Julian. That was the first time all 3 of us had been in the same room since the premiere that ended everything. Julian looked healthy. Older. He had never returned to blockbuster leading man status. He worked steadily. Mostly television and supporting film roles. He had been sober for more than 4 years. We shook hands. No speech. No masculine confrontation. Just, good to see you. You too. Because by then, neither of us needed the other to carry Celeste's choice. The screening ended after midnight. Outside, fans waited behind barricades. Celeste signed photographs. Some showed her as Mara Vey. Some from Where the River Ends. One young woman handed her a poster from the limited series she made after rejecting Orion. That seemed to affect her most. When the crowd disappeared, Celeste found me near the theater entrance. You stayed. It's my movie too. She smiled. Still territorial. Rights holder. Terrible disease. We walked toward the parking lot. Then she asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd told you before the premiere?" Yes. What do you think? I would have told you not to do it. I know. And if you still wanted divorce? We would have divorced privately. She nodded. Would you have protected my career? That question once would have angered me. Now I understood it. Yes. Her eyes filled slightly. I know. And that's the part one regret most. I looked at her. Losing the help? No. She shook her head. Building a life where I assumed it would always be there. That was better. We reached her car. No driver. She had started driving herself again years earlier. She opened the door, then stopped. Evan? Yes? I really did love you. I know. I wasn't choosing Julian over you. I know that too. She looked surprised. Maybe years earlier she still needed me to understand that. I did. The truth was more complicated. She had chosen her certainty over my consent. Chosen her ability to fix someone over my right to know what was being sacrificed. Chosen a manageable public lie over an unpredictable private conversation. Julian was simply the crisis that revealed it. I loved you too, I said. Past tense. Not cruel. Accurate. She smiled sadly. Good night. Good night, Celeste. She drove away. No collapse. No begging. No second marriage. No punishment scene waiting around the corner. The woman who once believed a live announcement could rewrite reality had finally built a life that did not require one. Years later, people still occasionally asked me about the contract. The famous contract. The one headlines claimed ended Celeste Arden's Hollywood career. They always expected a satisfying answer. That I wrote it to punish her. That I activated some secret clause. That I destroyed every studio offer with one signature. None of that happened. The contract had existed years before the scandal. She signed it while we were happily married. It made her rich. Made her famous. Protected her role. Then circumstances changed, and the same exclusivity that once guaranteed her future prevented her from reaching the next one quickly enough. That is what contracts do. They preserve bargains. Not relationships. The relationship had supplied all the flexibility the pages never promised. Once Celeste destroyed that relationship, she finally discovered where the written agreement actually ended. And where my willingness to rescue her had always begun. She announced divorce live to save Julian Cross. She succeeded only in changing the headline. His contract still removed him. Her contract still held her. Hollywood still moved. And eventually, the divorce she invented became real. Celeste lost the husband who had spent years bending the world around her career. She lost Mara Vey. Lost the A-list certainty she believed would last forever. Lost 2 opportunities while waiting for a contract to release her. Lost brands. Money. Momentum. And the comforting assumption that somebody else would make every bad choice survivable. But she did not lose herself. That was not mine to take. Years after the night she announced our divorce, I saw an interview she gave at a film festival. The reporter asked, "What was the most important contract of your career?" Celeste smiled. Everyone expected her to say Eden. Instead she answered, "The one I finally learned to read without assuming love would change the fine print." Then she laughed and moved on to the next question. I turned off the television. And for the first time, hearing her tell part of our story publicly did not bother me. Because she had finally learned the difference between telling the truth and changing it to save someone. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.